Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona, and let's have the first question, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question today is from the live stream from Angel. Dear Ajahn, is it possible or maybe even advisable to shift to a positive mental state without identifying the mundane causes of a negative one, such as a prior argument or a piece of bad news, etc.? I find myself slipping into blame mode when attempting to figure out why I'm feeling down. Maybe not such a great idea.
I think it's important that you understand, and the audience, everybody understands, that we're not really interested in specific causes of this. The basic cause of ill will is unwise attention to a fault. And you don't have to go into the details of why you are attending unwisely to a fault. What tells you that you're attending unwisely to the fault is the emotional tone. So if you're angry about something, then you know that you're attending unwisely. So you don't have to go into the great details of this. What you try to do is recognize that and interrupt it, because you've made a firm decision in your life that it's not necessary to emotionally react negatively to these faults of the world. It doesn't mean there are no faults of people, the world, etc. It means that it's not philosophically wise to react negatively to it. It's just the way the universe is. You're objecting to reality, and you just create suffering for yourself unnecessarily. So you attend wisely to the world. You attend wisely to the various faults in people, including yourself. And the emotional tone of that remains positive or neutral. So it's not about detailed analysis. That's very nice for novels and so forth, maybe even for psychologists to spend years with a client going into the details and how this association corresponds with childhood events and so forth. This is really not the Buddhist technique. It's primarily interruption and replacement. It's believed in the West, in the Western psychology, that you have to understand it all and go into it, and somehow this alleviates things. But actually, it's an infinite maze of analysis and possibilities that doesn't result in it can result in some normalization or reduction, but Buddhism is like get to the point, just cut it off or replace it. And it's also, people have this idea that somehow you're repressing something. You're not repressing it. It's not there. It's a habit structure that needs to be interrupted, and then it diminishes. It's interrupted and replaced. So you go down a new circuit. It's like a path in the forest. If you don't walk down it, it grows back with grass and it eventually grows over. And if you go down a different path, that one becomes clear and is defined by the constant passage of feet. So that's all it is. These are just circuits in the mind, the paths in the mind. And the Buddhist approach is not very little in the way of psychological analysis. It's just do this again and again. It's just repetition like that. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Chris in California, United States. It is said the stream enterer knows dependent origination, which talks about rebirth. Is it necessary to know one's past lives to achieve stream entry?
Well, false premise. The Sotapanna, the stream enterer, doesn't necessarily know about dependent origination. This is the famous dialogue with Ananda, who was a stream enterer, an attendant to the Buddha, had heard the Buddha's teaching, and he said to the Buddha that he understood it very clearly, dependent origination. And the Buddha says, do not say so, do not say so. To understand dependent origination is to be an arahant, or fully enlightened. So it's not an intellectual understanding. It means that the causal process which is described has been internalized. It's like saying you understand how to dance, but you can't dance very well. So you say, I've understood the dynamics of dancing. You put your foot here and you listen to the downbeat of the music, etc. That is not to have understood dancing. To have understood dancing is to be able to dance. And so it is the same with the theory of music. You haven't fully understood it until you can actually do it. So this is what is meant by dependent origination. All of the Buddha's teachings are subsumed under the idea of full experience. It's like a psychological theory that you haven't actually completed. So it's a practical matter. Now, the Sotapanna does not necessarily know anything about their past lives, but they do have a view. They have a right view that they are committed to the idea of continuation. They're not a full-blown annihilationist. In the West, a sort of scientific quote, ideas are that you basically are nothing but material. There is, in fact, no mind apart from the material operations of the brain and body. That is exclusively the product of the genetic system, and that at death it just simply goes out. And that's a view. And the Sotapanna, if you're described as a Sotapanna, you don't have that. What you have committed, without necessarily knowledge, you have committed to a view of causal processes that continue past this life. So this is called mundane right view, in which you have a commitment to cause and effect, good speech and action, intentionally good speech and action have good results, negative ones have negative results, and in order for that to really take place, there must be continuation beyond this life. And you have a faith in the teachings of the Buddha, which have not all been confirmed by any means in your practical experience, but you just have intuited, you have a sense that this is very, very reliable, good teaching, and a commitment to that. So that's the fetter that has dropped away for the Sotapanna is doubt about the teachings of the Buddha. Now you have confidence in the teachings of the Buddha. But it is not necessarily full knowledge of the teachings of the Buddha. By the way, it's possible to be even an arahant and not have access to past life memories. And so that is not a necessary prerequisite of an enlightenment or a necessary capacity of the enlightened person to have memories of their previous life, even of all of this life. How many people have full memory of this life? That's a freakish. Occasionally, that occurs in people who are not enlightened, but it's not necessary. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Next question from the live stream is from John in Toronto, Canada. Are all monks expected to be teacher figures? If not, is it only those who have the disposition for it? Are there other duties given to monks who do not teach?
Certainly, it is not. It is not all monks are teachers, except in the sense that simply being in the robes themselves are a teaching. They're what's called a sign, a heavenly sign. So some people have seen a monk walking in arms round or just sitting or walking, and it registers with consciousness that what's that about? That's a sign or a direction that there's something more to this existence than just the materialistic ideas, the mundane ideas of life. What's that person about? So that's a sign, and that's a teaching. So aside from that, many monks are not equipped to explain the Dhamma and will perhaps never be in the position of giving Dhamma talks or giving detailed instructions. And what do they do? They have, in the first 5 years of your monastic life, you have duties to your teacher, and they might involve mundane things like doing their laundry or sweeping their porch or washing their cutlery or bowl or something like that. These kind of mundane duties are something that you can do to help a teacher. Now, the teacher has other duties which involve teaching people, and that is a consuming task. But you have to have certain qualities and capacities in order to teach people. And there's no point in it if you don't have those capacities. You just end up giving the wrong teachings or confusing people or embarrassing yourself. So it's not given to all monks to teach. I would say that it's very, well, I'm just referring to different countries have different traditions. Thailand is a country which has a very high percentage of temporary ordinations. So it's thought to be good and useful for a young man to have spent some time in the robes, even a very short period of time. And so there's a huge number of the male population that have had temporary ordinations, but they, what can you learn in a month or 2 months or 3 months or even 2 weeks? You're not competent to give teachings at all. And so there's a very small percentage then that remain in the robes long enough and internalized it enough to be teachers. And even those who have been in the robes for 10 years, 20 years even, are not necessarily cut out to be teachers. Yeah.
Next question is from Rafe in Lima, Peru. I heard you say we can start the Eightfold Path in any order. I've also heard that torpor is removed in first jhana. If so, would it be wise to strive towards arahantship by attaining first jhana firstly, move on to sotapanna, and then continue the path towards liberation? Also, what places or settings are ideal for reaching deep levels of absorption?
Well, what I meant by you can start anywhere in the path is it's really not in the path yet. If you just are starting samadhi, concentration, it's really not yet right samadhi. So people have attained types of samadhi, they're meditating on the breath and so forth. They get into a very serene and wonderful condition of mind. And it is not quite yet what's called sama samadhi or right samadhi. because it's not informed by right view. So you have not actually begun the path yet. But what happens is that this is an unusual state of mind, and the normal society around us does not even speak of this type of activity of the mind, and so it's quite a revelation. People are become enthusiastic if they get into this very exquisite and beautiful clarity and serenity, joyous serenity. They think, oh my goodness, that stuff they were taught, those spiritual people are talking about is true. Now you've confirmed it in your own experience. So this makes you curious, but it doesn't actually fully put you on the path. It's an initiator to the path. You're only truly on the path when you have right view. That's at least mundane right view. So you don't have to be enlightened, but you have to have a certain commitment to a view of the universe. And then the path proper is begun. Right view is the beginning. It's the early dawn. The light starts to appear. You can make out the shapes of things. And that's mundane right view. It has that there is this world, there is another a world beyond this that is a continuation of existence. There are right actions and right speech and so forth, and it's not random, it's not absurd, it's not annihilation, etc. These are views that are given up and a commitment to a type of right view, and it's called right view because it engages you towards activities, and you have to, it's not just an intellectual apprehension, it's a commitment to a view of existence. And then you're on the way. You're basically headed in the right direction. And so, yeah, when you practice mindfulness, lots of people these days practice mindfulness and they get good benefits, but it's not necessarily the right mindfulness. It's always better to have, a sustained capacity for attention, be able to direct your attention and remain sustained in attention towards almost any activity, but it's still not right mindfulness. It's still not directed towards this ultimate aim. So that's what I meant. And you won't go on to arahantship until you have right view. You can't possibly enter the path without right view. The arising of right view is the beginning of the Arya path, the noble path. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Justin in Charleston, South Carolina, United States. Dear Venerable Sir, would you please elaborate on unwholesome versus wholesome thought, as in discerning between the two, or whether arahants do this? How does this relate to fear of wrongdoing?
In the case of arahants, they're not discerning anymore. They're incapable of unwholesome thought, and they are only capable of wholesome thought. So it's now something has been removed from their system, and it's not a choice anymore. They cannot indulge in unwise thought or non-noble thought. So it's an inevitability. Once you have, what we would say, deleted certain circuits, they're no longer active and they don't need to be attended to. But let's look at the limbs of the enlightened mind, which are called the 7 factors of enlightenment. These are called bojjhangas. Angas mean like limbs. And the first one is mindfulness. They continue with mindfulness. Mindfulness is continuously practiced, but it's effortless. It is the nature of things. they continue to investigate the Dhamma, the second factor of the enlightened mind, so that they can fill out the details. Then energy arises, joy arises. So they have access to joy, the emotion of joy, and in a sense, they would be in a continuous sort of state of lightness of being. Or the next one, moving towards tranquility or serenity, that's passaddhi, the fifth factor. And they are able to enter into substantial states of samadhi. At least the first 4 jhanas are available to them. By the way, a monk that is an arahant is not always in deep samadhi. They also have to engage. Perhaps they're a teacher or something. They have to engage in conversations. They would go on an alms round. They'd have to walk through a village. You have to attend to the ground in front of you so you don't trip and fall, and you have to know where to go. And these are ordinary activities of the mind, and the mind in its practical mode does these. But the emotional structure is always within these 7 factors. And so lack of mindfulness or negative emotions don't arise. The circuits are gone. There's no potential for it. So, and the last factor is equanimity. So they're balanced and equanimous in 2 ways. There's 2 types of equanimity. One is deep in samadhi. This would be the characteristic of the 4th jhana, very profound state of stillness of mind, which could last for days. And in that state, one would be in a non-moving state. You would be sitting in samadhi. You would be sitting in meditation. And then there's another type of equanimity, balance, which takes place in the midst of activity in the world, even in the midst of speech, where somebody insults you, but you have no reaction to that, or somebody praises you, and you have no reaction to that. Something fortunate happens, you get food that day, and you're not reactive, and you don't get food that day, you're not reactive. So this is equanimity based on wisdom, and the other one is equanimity based on samadhi or deep stillness. So that's the nature of the arahant mind, and the roots have been removed. The roots of ignorance, of the negative emotions, have been removed. So there is no need to constantly supervise that. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Niles in Brazil. My daily practice is metta. However, I believe it is increasing my lust. How should I find balance?
Well, that is called the near enemy of metta. Lust is the near enemy of metta. Lust and preferential. So this is a kind of a commentarial address from the Visuddhimagga, like what's called the near enemy and the far enemy of loving kindness. Each of these 4 sublime emotions, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, or celebration of others' happiness is the 3rd one. And the last one, equanimity, has a near enemy and a far enemy. It's brilliant the way it's been put. So what is not loving kindness? Loving kindness has no conditions attached to it. So it's not about the individual's conditions, that they're beautiful or ugly or tall or short or young or old or in good health or bad health or near or far, or any of these things are not the condition for goodwill. So if you're experiencing lust, then you have it's only on a conditioned object. So you have particular preferences which you really like that attract you, and so that's not metta. That's not loving kindness. So you have to let go of that. It's kind of like you have to practice it as if, for all beings, as if there's a whole crowd of beings, like animals and people and so forth, behind a curtain. And somebody's told you there's 200 beings behind that curtain, and all you can hear is some of the sounds there. So all you know is that there's 200 beings. You don't know what kind of beings they are, what condition they're in. And you are to radiate goodwill towards that crowd of beings, but you have no clue as to their particularities, their individual characteristics. And so you generate this goodwill, and you don't know what condition they're in. Then you can draw the curtain aside and you'll see maybe they're all beautiful, or maybe they're all deformed, or even they all hate you. That is the particular characteristic. That's the conditions attached. So you managed to radiate goodwill towards them before you knew any of their characteristics, and that's what metta is. The trick is, when you are aware of particular characteristics, can you still give out goodwill indifferent to their particular characteristics? So the instructions for that condition, where metta turns into, desire, attraction, is to avoid thinking of particular individuals who you have a lustful relationship with in terms of your metta practice. Stay with beings that you do not have a lustful relationship with when you bring them to mind in particular. But in general, we're not actually bringing any individuals to mind. It is without reference to any particular condition. This is quite often misunderstood, and I've given a whole series of talks on the Metta Sutta, the Sutta on loving kindness, the discourse on loving kindness. And I go into quite an explanation, because what's given there is a whole list of characteristics of whether a being is large, small, middling, near, far, born, to be born. And quite often it's interpreted as that you must focus on beings that are large and small and near and far and so forth. But that's not what is meant. It means that without regard to whether they are large or small or near or far, it's without regard to any particular condition. So when you're radiating loving kindness, it's not really for a particular being. It's unconditional, without reference to their particularity. Yes, if that's a word. It's just a general wave of goodwill shining out towards the universe, and no characteristic about a being. So that's universal goodwill. Yeah, let's go on.
Next question from the live stream is from Joe in the United Kingdom. Dear Ajahn, what are skillful ways to respond to antisocial behavior in our local communities? I try to generate metta in response, in the thought that this behavior comes from ignorance.
Well, that's connected to the last question we had. And you don't have to excuse them because of ignorance or whatever. You just radiate loving kindness. and you're not interested in whether they're ignorant or what the motivation of their behavior is. It's you. You are the primary beneficiary of the development of loving kindness. Others may not benefit. They may not know, and they may even react negatively to your goodwill. Some beings react well to loving kindness and kindness, etc., and others do not. It's their loss if they don't. But you always benefit from it. It is intrinsically beneficial to have loving kindness. It's a beautiful emotional state. And you're not interested whether they deserve it or not. So that's the key. You're off the hook. You don't have to examine their motives. You don't have to justify it at all. It's just goodwill. At the same time, we're not stupid. We realize there's negative behavior, and we understand people's motivations. And yes, all negative types of behavior are based on lack of knowledge. This is ignorance. Ignorance is not a terribly pejorative term. It just means that you don't understand things. You have a mistaken idea about reality. And it produces unwise types of emotions, hostility and anger, which are self-injurious. You injure yourself by these emotions. It doesn't mean that we're looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, that everybody's fine, etc. Not everybody's fine. Lots of beings are full of fury and hate and destructive behavior, and we do not approve of that behavior. But we realize that it would be foolish of me to injure myself because other beings are ignorant and act destructively. So why would I injure myself with negative emotions about that? So we give up this self-injury, and yet we remain lucid and clear and understanding about the nature of other people's and other beings. And maybe it could be a dog, a vicious dog. Usually the vicious dog is being mistreated or does not understand. It always feels under threat, etc. So it's ignorant as well. We know about these motivations, but we don't sink into negative emotions about this situation. Okay, next.
Next question is from Jeffrey in Auckland, New Zealand. I am aware you have read Dr. McGilchrist's work. When I meditate on his work, I have Jungian experiences. My body splits down the middle to then glow within. When I meditated through Buddhist prompts in the past, I would get radiant streams of light coming up from the floor. My old teacher from an Ajahn Mahabua school argued this was the heart going out and to bring it back down, or to not attach to such experiences. What are these lights?
Yeah, the lights are just what I call an epiphenomenon. It's just a side effect of clarity, goodwill. And, people, if they've been in a difficult situation and then they get good news, they'll describe the experience as light. Like depression, people with depression experience the world as dark, and their own mind is dark. You see it again and again when people are literate enough to write about their experiences of depression. Darkness is the favorite word, and if they come out of it, the light will be their favorite word. So this is just the nature of the mind. It's kind of a side effect of emotional structures. So lights appearing, the sense of light, internal light, and so forth, are just side effects of positive emotional experiences. It's quite often reported in religious experiences as well. A person comes through a dangerous experience in the war and comes out the other side, and then they're alive and kind of showered with light, or feel like light is radiant all around them. This is commonly reported. Lightness and dark. Light and dark are the descriptions of the world. This is the internal description of the world. I wouldn't make too much of the light or the dark. The light is a secondary side effect. That's not the important thing. What are your emotional experiences? Is it joy? Is it ease? Is it a sense of confidence? It is clarity. That's the important thing. You'll see this in some of the descriptions of attempts to attain jhana, and some of the, especially breath meditation. There's a characteristic described in the commentaries that light, sort of light, appears when doing breath meditation correctly. But the Buddha, the essential instructions in breath meditation leading to real concentration is emotional. Joy is featured. Ease in the body is featured. Continuous focus of the mind is featured. The rising of light and so forth is not one of the main featured factors, because awareness of light is not relevant to suffering. It's the suffering is felt. The only meaningful suffering is felt suffering. So we suffer primarily in the emotional dimension. By the way, pain in the body is not eliminated through enlightenment. Pain remains in the body. It's the emotional reaction to such things as pain in the body. So what is eliminated is painful misunderstandings about the world, emotional pain. And this is the essence of the whole path. And side effects such as light are not the important thing. There's side effects.
Next question from the live stream is from Quasatar in Melbourne, Australia. If at death one can be overwhelmed by fear, will their rebirth reflect that, or is the fear a thin curtain for their base consciousness, and is that which carries on?
Yeah, it's an answered question in the suttas and in what's called Abhidhamma and so forth. They go into this. How is what's the connection between one life and the next? What determines the experience of the next birth and so forth? And it is the last moment of this life conditions the arising of the first moment of the next life, and there is no gap between them. This is the standard Theravada attitude. And it's important, actually, that fear is not the content of the last moment. One of the benefits of loving kindness is that one dies without confusion. And confusion is a word that would include fear. So the essence of loving kindness, there's a sutta called the 11 benefits of loving kindness. And I've given talks on this on the YouTube channel. So look up 11 benefits of loving kindness. I give several talks on this. The last one is one dies without confusion. Having practiced it deeply, frequently, often, it's transformed you. The nature of loving kindness is non-fear, or the feeling of safety. So the primary characteristic of loving kindness is safety, that one is without fear. So a child being held by their mother is delights in the experience because they feel safe. So loving kindness is not only the wish for safety of other beings, but the feeling of safety is that you have the experience of loving kindness. You feel able to manage the vagaries of life. So if this an overwhelming fear at the time of death is not a good thing. It can influence the nature of that pivoting moment resulting in the next life. However, the moral contents of the entire life still remains as causal seeds, which may play out in the next life or beyond. These moral activities do not disappear. They remain as causal potentials. This is very different, say, than Christianity, where your sins are all forgiven. You just confess it, and your negative actions are all cleansed, and you just go to heaven, and you never have to worry again for eternity. This is not the Buddhist attitude. Even if you manage to change directions of your life and purify the mind so that you end up in a heaven, still the negative actions have not exhausted themselves. There are still negative potentials remaining, and no priest or anybody can simply snap their fingers or remove that by any means. So this is why, you might want to go to confession. You want to confess certain things to get them off your chest or with another person, but that doesn't purify the results of that. It's a very different attitude than in Christianity. So one should be clear about this. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Bandana in California, United States. Dear Ajahn, I was watching your YouTube talks on Buddhist cosmology. You talk about the Brahma Gods, but not Vishnu or Shiva. Do you know anything about what Buddha said about them?
Well, these Vishnu and Shiva become representatives of various things in the world, like death or impermanence. They are kind of mythological representations of universal features of life. And it's very helpful. It's certain elements are arising, some are sustaining, and some are dissolving. And this is the nature of the universe, that it's in constant change, impermanent. And if you can embody it, you can personalize it in the form of deities and gods and so forth. But the primary lesson about them is that be aware of this destructive nature of the universe. You get this nice house in California, right? You make it, and then darn, the Santa Ana winds and a fire comes along and just gone. This is the god of destruction has struck. This is the older language for this. We would say that it's the fires have swept it away, but actually in the older ways we personify this and say that the Kalki, the god of destruction, has arrived. So the Buddha doesn't really dispute with the God ideas, the ideas of the gods and so forth. He sometimes makes them his disciples. He converts them to Buddhism. This is an interesting strategy for religions. The same thing happened in Greece at the same time with Socrates. Socrates was actually put to death at the age of 70 by the courts in Athens for corrupting the youth of Athens by questioning the existence of the gods. But he did not do that. What he suggested was there's other ways and maybe more fruitful ways of thinking. He didn't I think the Buddha and Socrates both thought it's not necessary to question the old ways of thinking about things. It would be a tedious task. Why don't I instead introduce new ways of thinking, and we can allow those other things to be there without, questioning their existence. But what happens is that you prioritize what's really important in life, and that is the moral and ethical nature of life, the purification of the mind. And the Buddha is very clear that it has nothing to do with the gods. The gods don't operate within that sphere. You are personally responsible for the purification of your mind, and the gods have nothing to do with that. Yeah. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Sumrit. Dear Ajahn, what is your take on past life regression therapy? Is it helpful in having a closure with the unfortunate events happening in life?
It might be. It's very interesting how people who don't even believe in past lives under certain types of hypnotic regression and so forth have vivid experiences of it, and quite often are quite shaken by the whole thing. They come out the other side. We're in a culture, and it's a Christian-influenced culture that has allows the idea of a future life, but disallows the idea of a past life. This is a curious feature of Christianity. I understand that there was a council at some point where they had to sort it out, because there were early Christians who had past life theories. And in fact, in Judaism as well, there are certain sects of Jews that have the idea of reincarnation or past lives and future lives. But it's a bit messy. So some of them didn't have that idea, some of them did. So they had to decide, is this a Christian concept? Well, whatever the majority vote in that council was, no past life, but definitely future life. An arbitrary decision by a group of people. It's quite often it is not even addressed. Like, do you come out of nothing? Where does are you in? They usually call it ensoulment. So where does the soul come from? God create your soul and plunk it into your body, and then it persists through eternity. Well, it's just very difficult to understand. So in the East, there are many religions and philosophies that have an idea that you pre-exist, and then there's this life, and then there's future lives. And sometimes episodes from previous lives explain why you have certain phobias, neurosis, obsessions. They might explain love at first sight is because this is not your first go-round. You meet somebody and you feel very, very friendly and connected to them, as if you've been friends before. Others you meet and they're your enemies, Others are neutral, people you feel like you've had lifetimes with. And so that's the view of the Buddha. So perhaps the past life regression might solve some traumatic situations, yeah. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Chai Love in Durham, North Carolina, United States. I am interested in pursuing ordination to become a nun. I can move anywhere and am unsure how to select a community and teacher. Do you have any guidance on how to make this choice?
Well, I can't give you specific communities or nuns to ordain with, because it's a bit, if you're in the Theravada world, it's a rather new community. There's the reintroduction of the idea of bhikkhuni ordination in recent times has created a number of nunneries, but it is a new experience for many, and part of the difficulties are the adapting of rules for bhikkhunis to this present time, and the fact that you don't have a lineage of nun teachers that who themselves were in a community with nuns of 30 or 40 or 50 years experience, who had teachers of 40 or 50 years of experience, etc. So it's a different, first of all, it's less, there are less of them, and they're in a new situation. So it takes quite a bit of searching on your part to explore these communities, to find that which is suitable for you. And there's two parts to it. One is that you might not be suitable for them. So there's a feeling out in these communities. The same in the monks' communities. Not everybody who shows up to a monastery is suitable to be a monk. And the community, the senior monks will determine whether you are to continue. And sometimes the hard news comes that you're not suitable. And the other direction is that the community itself is not that, has lapses and has problems. So you decide as the student seeking that it's not a suitable place for you. You're looking for a better or more conducive type of community. These are the difficulties of it. But I would certainly advise you not just to drop into the first place and assume that they are suitable for you. It requires some experience. You should sample and consider various communities, get some experience with them. Go to like male communities as well, to see how they run, and then go to, half a dozen different nuns communities. If you have the means and the time to do so, a thorough search is good. And that's all that's the general advice. You might come, in the first one you walk in the door, you might find the perfect community, and they like you and you like them, and it's all good. But that's a dart game, So you might have to try a half a dozen. Okay, one last question.
Ajahn, our last question today is from the live stream from Chloe. Dear Ajahn, I'm easily gullible. How do I live to rely on myself and the Dhamma?
Well, you need to learn the Dhamma first, and it'll tell you what not to believe. Primarily, your first guide are the people who are telling you things virtuous? Are they, do they follow themselves, and are they within the guidelines of non-killing, non-stealing, non-sexual misconduct, non-lying, and free from intoxicants and drugs? So do they live a virtuous life? And then you must be familiar with types of attitudes that the Buddha has in order to sort out what is a good thing. So the primary thing you're going to study is the Eightfold Path. There is a very good book by Bhikkhu Bodhi, available, I think, through Wisdom Publications, called The Noble Eightfold Path. And so go online and look for the Noble Eightfold Path, and it will give you all the characteristics of wise and reliable people, and be set aside those who are not qualifying by this, no matter what they say, because there are a lot of people out there saying all kinds of things that are wrong. And they're gurus, and they're this, and they're that, and they're enlightened, and they're all this and that. And no, they aren't. So now you have some criteria by which to judge. Okay, one thing I would like to mention is that next week we will not have a question and answer. You will have a full Dhamma talk by me. And that premiere is available on the YouTube channel right now, and the title of that talk is available to see, except that the talk will not be available until next week at this time. So stay tuned for that. We have various people in the monastery that make this live stream happen, and sometimes they have to go away and then they come back and so forth. So we can't pull off the Q&A every time. So, but we do have nice content that you have not heard before, and that is a talk by me. Okay, that's it.